Alright, so this is the video for filling in the Becoming a Cell notes. There's two sheets. You're going to need these sheets. You're going to need two of the shapes, one of this shapes and one of this shapes before you get started. And you're also going to need something to write with and these colors of things: highlighters, markers, colored pencils, whatever. You need a green, pink, red, blue, and yellow. It's very important that you have these colors because we're going to be color coding our notes as we go. Okay, so in the last unit we talked about biomolecules, and we're going to see today how those biomolecules came together to form very simple cells. All right, so in the beginning, millions of years ago, we started out with a random collection of biomolecules floating in water. So we're going to draw that, okay? So I'm just going to write the word carb, to represent the monosaccharides or disaccharides that were floating around by themselves in the water, okay? And then I'm also going to write the word lipid to represent a monomer of some lipids that were, again, just floating around in the water. And then the last thing is we're going to add some amino acids. And I'm going to make them, just going to put the letters AA in a circle, like this. Okay, so here we have a stew of biomolecules that right now are just floating around. So we are going to highlight our things that have to do with carbohydrates are going to be pink. Like something sweet and sugary. Our lipids are going to be yellow, like oils and fats, like butter. You think butter is yellow, that's a lipid. And then our amino acids, which are the monomer of our proteins, we're going to do those with our red. Okay, you think of red like red meat, and that is a protein. Okay, and they're floating in water, so you're going to need your blue, and we're just going to draw some water around them so we know they're not just sitting on a rock or floating out in the air. They're in liquid water. Okay, so we move on to the next space. Something important you need to know about lipids is that they have a love-hate relationship with water, or H2O. And it causes them to naturally form a barrier. Half of them like water, one side likes water, the other side doesn't like water, so they naturally just kind of line up in a line to separate water on one side and the other, okay? And then we have some carbohydrates will form long chains and are stiff and inflexible. And an example of this kind of carbohydrate would be cellulose. Like anytime you eat celery, and celery is crunchy because of the cellulose. Okay, so like I said before, we're going to be color coding. So we're going to take our lipids, it's going to be yellow. Our carbs are going to be pink. And then we're going to model what this looks like. Okay, and we're going to do it using words. So you're going to draw a circle, a fairly moderate sized circle. And since the lipids naturally form a barrier, we're going to form a barrier using the word lipids. So you're just going to write the word lipids over and over again. Yes, it is important that you do this step. You need to associate lipids with the cell membrane, which you learned last unit. And that's what we're drawing right now, is a representation of lipids forming a cell membrane. And you learn things by repetition. So we're going to repeat the word lipids over and over again to form a membrane. And then we're gonna, it's got two sides, so we're gonna close it in like that, okay? And then once we have that drawn, you're gonna color it with your yellow, because we're color coding lipids yellow. All right. And then our long and flexible chains like cellulose, that goes on the outside of this very flexible inner membrane. So we're gonna use the word carbohydrates, which is long, so you only are gonna have to write it like 4 times. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. Okay. So now we know that there's an outer layer of carbohydrates that is stiff and inflexible, and then we have an inner layer of lipids that is actually super flexible and easily torn or broken. All right, so we have our inner and outer layer. Now again, the cell is still in water. This is just something that just happened because of the way that they are. So we're gonna draw our water inside and outside, because these barriers formed around water to make like a water balloon almost. And then we're gonna add back some of our amino acids, because some of them got trapped inside and some of them are still outside. I'm just gonna put dots for the amino acids with my red. Okay. All right. So here we have, this is a good start, but it's not alive. This is just the structure. This is just the house that was formed first. I mean, now we have to put the living stuff inside. All right. So we're going to go over to our next page, because these 2 pages are meant to go like this in your notebook. So over here, to be a cell, you need genetic info. You do need more than that, but at the bare minimum, if you don't have any genetic info, you can't even be considered to be a cell at all. Okay. And this is genetic info is a programming code, like the operating system that your phone runs on or your computer runs on, controls the activities. Okay. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay, this is where the DNA comes from. That's just a short version of that. So our genetic information we're going to code as green. So you're going to take your green and we're going to highlight that it is our genetic info. It's important to remember that it is DNA and what DNA stands for. Okay, so DNA code. What is DNA code? Well, DNA code is just an arrangement of 4 different nitrogen bases. They have names: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, but we shorten them down to A, T, C, and G. Okay, and that sequence is held in place by strands of sugars and phosphates. So when you look at a DNA strand, it looks a little like a ladder. There are 2 edges on the outside and then things going across. The edges are what are holding the middle parts together, but the middle part is what is really important here. Okay, so I'm going to draw a little eye on our Pac-Man here. This is an enzyme, and this enzyme's name is DNA polymerase. So like polymer and then ase, because it's an enzyme. Okay, and the job of DNA polymerase, we're going to color him red because he is a protein, is to make DNA. He takes the parts and he puts them together to form DNA strands. Okay, so this is where you're going to need some tape, and these parts of our DNA strand that we are going to create All right, so these are our two sides of sugars and phosphates, and these are our middle parts of our nitrogen bases. All right, so we're gonna put the circle up at the top, and you're just gonna take a piece of tape. I'll tape that down. You don't have to be fancy and roll the back, just tape it right down. Okay, and then we're gonna label these, their parts. So the P is for phosphate, so we're gonna label all the circles with a P. And the pentagons are gonna be our deoxyribose sugar. So we're gonna put that with an S with a sugar. Now you'll see these are not actually connected together, so we need to add some bonds. So I'm just gonna draw some lines in between them to indicate that we have connected them together with our DNA polymerase, okay? Then we're going to take your strip that has the diamond on it. And you see here we have 4 shapes. This is A, C, T, and G, which we'll get to labeling in just a second. These shapes actually connect to the sugars. So we're gonna line them up and tape them down. Okay, and then we're gonna draw a bond between the sugars and our bases. And then we'll label the bases so we know what they are. So A, C, T, and this is G. Okay? So this is half of a DNA strand. Now, what happens here is the complementary base to this will come and attach to it. A and A can't go together because if you see here, A is pointy on the side, this A right here is pointy on the side. Those don't match up, okay? What this does match with is this indentation right here. So the A fits right here into the T. This round part of the C fits right into this round part of the G. So they're not exact. They're what's called complementary, which means they match or they go together, but they're not the same thing. Like your hands are not the same. There's no way that you can line your hands up together that they will be exactly the same, but they are complementary to each other. They go together, they match when you put them like this. Okay, so we're gonna label our other ones. So this one A, and that goes with the T. Our C goes with the G, the T goes with the A, and the A then goes with the C. These are also connected by very weak bonds, so we're gonna put some dashed lines here to show that it's kind of like Velcro. They peel apart pretty easy, which is important later on. Okay, and then we're gonna hold it together on the other side with the other half of our backbone or outside strand of phosphates and sugars, which we're gonna label. All the circles are phosphate groups. Pentagons are our deoxyribose sugars. We're gonna bond these together right here, and then we're gonna bond these together right here. Okay, so we have just created a DNA strand. This is his job. He puts all these things together. These are what we call complementary strands. There are 2, and they match each other, but they're not the same. All right, so now that we've created our DNA, we're going to go down here to this bottom section. All right, so the sequence of nitrogen bases equals the information held by the genetic code. This is like how the sequence of words forms, or the sequence of letters forms words, and then you say those words and then people know what you're talking about. So the sequence we're talking about is right here and right here. So you need to draw arrows to point that this is the sequence. This sequence is A, C, T, G. This is a different sequence, T, G, A, C. So A, C, T, G, and T, G, A, C. That is the sequence, and the order is very important, okay? So these DNA instructions, because this is what they are instructions. can now be used to make proteins. And proteins are things like enzymes, muscles, your nails, some hormones, hair, transport proteins inside the cell, all different parts of the cell. Proteins are really what you're made out of. Okay, we're gonna color code this section down here. So our DNA instructions, because those are nucleic acids, we're gonna do with the green. And then down here, since we're talking about proteins, we're gonna do that with the red. So you can see how proteins and nucleic acids are related. They're not the same, but without DNA, you wouldn't have the recipes to make the proteins. All right, so now we're gonna come over here to this blank spot, and ooh, it's a blank spot. We're gonna draw a picture. We're so excited, but y'all already did it once more, so this should go much more quickly. All right, so we're gonna do our cell the same way that we did similar before. So we're gonna draw this, and we're gonna create our cell membrane, which is made out of lipids. So we're going to, again, write lipids over and over again. Yes. Oh, it's so tiring. Oh, I don't like doing this. Oh, miss, you're making us write so much. It's okay, because once you're done with this, you're done, and you don't ever have to do it ever again. So, lipids, lipids, lipids. We're really going to remember that the cell membrane is made out of lipids. Okay, and we've got actually our 2 layers. And then what's the outside made out of? Did I hear someone say carbohydrates? I hope so. So we're going to write carbohydrates. On the outside for our cell wall. Carbohydrates. And then one more time. Carbohydrates. All right, so now we know we have an inner wall or inner membrane of lipids. Our cell wall is made out of our carbohydrates, and we just got done talking about nucleic acids, so now we're going to add some nucleic acids into the middle. So this is a very rough sketch of what they look like. And we're going to label these nucleic acid. Nucleic acid. So we have just incorporated 3 of the 4 biomolecules that we have talked about. Okay, we're going to color code real quick. Our carbohydrates are pink. So we're going to color our cell wall pink. Then we're going to color our cell membrane yellow, because it's like butter, and butter is a lipid. And we have been coding our nucleic acids green, so we're going to color these green. Again, this cell is floating in water, so we need to add some water, because cells don't just go anywhere. Okay, we're not in space. We're not inside a volcano. We're in some water. All right. And then we're going to add our last biomolecule back, which are the little amino acids, which again are inside and outside of the cell. Amino acids. Yay. So now we have all 4: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. And this is how your cells are made. This is why we talked about you are what you eat, because when you eat food, it goes to building your cells, and these are things. Obviously, we don't have a cell wall because we're the strange of all the kingdoms, but everything else you have. All right, and so here we have, ta-da! We made an extremely simple cell. This would be considered to be alive now. It has all the parts that it needs to function, to reproduce, to use energy. And this is a very simple prokaryotic cell. All right. So once you have this part filled in, you're going to go back to your first page here, and we're going to fill in with our new the new nucleic acid code, which is DNA. Different nucleic acids, and these are helper nucleic acids that we call RNA. They can do their job, which is to build proteins. And you need to write this really, really big because this is extremely important. So let's put some stars next to it. Ooh, it's so important. If we are not building proteins, we're not being alive, and then we don't like that because that means we're either dead or not living in the first place. All right, so we're gonna color code our nucleic acid code, which is DNA. There are some other nucleic acids that are called RNA, and what they do is they help us to build proteins so that we can live and be happy. The end. All right, so now we're gonna go to this end part right here. We're gonna first color code. So carbohydrates are pink. So we're just gonna color in carbohydrates. All right, our lipids are yellow. So we're going to do this yellow. Nucleic acids were green. And then our proteins for the last were red. What you're gonna do is you're going to see if you can figure out the answers to these using the notes that you just took or the knowledge that you've already had. And then your teacher will check to make sure that this is correct. And then you're gonna be taping this into your notebook. This page is gonna go onto a left-hand side and this will go onto a right-hand side so that they are spread together like this. Okay?